Doesn't look like a perennial food plot behind me because this is a revamp year. We went away from perennial clovers and we turned it into annual soybeans to try to control some of our weeds. But this is a food plot that will typically have a perennial forage base. So we'll use red clovers and white clovers, chicories and alfalfa to attract deer and withstand browse pressure in this 1.25 acre, 1.5 acre size food plot. And that's typical in timber country. If you go much smaller than that, you are basically throwing away seed if you try to put soybeans or annual corn in food plots of that size, especially if you have high deer density. So we lean on perennial clovers a lot, like this imperial clover and the fusion clover blends. Perennial based, but that doesn't mean that if you have a perennial base, you can't introduce annuals, especially in the fall. So we've talked in past land beat videos about the research about using herbicides to control weeds in your clovers versus mowing. But late summer, a lot of those weeds they're too mature to be controlled with herbicide. So we typically use a mowing of our perennial clovers in late summer. This is a great time to introduce annuals, especially in July. I love that time of year for planting brassica blends, turnips, rape, kale, collards. All of those in the brassica family are great to plant in many parts of the world, in many parts of the whitetails range in July. You get a lot of, here in the Midwest, we get a lot of hurricane type rainstorms that bring in, so we get those July rains, even early August. That's when you can introduce these brassica blends like this winter greens to your perennial clover bases. And so you can have perennial clover attracting deer early and then leaning in on winter brassicas during fall and winter. And that is a great way to add diversity to your food plots, a great way to fill voids in spots that the clover may have been burned up or overbrowsed, and it's an open space in the food plot for weeds to grow. You can fill it with brassicas in July or early August. If you don't get the annual brassicas in July, then lean on cereal grains in August or September, and even if you're down south in October. These are all ways to not be devoted solely to perennial clover in your plot. Don't be afraid to introduce annuals like this in late summer.